Hi, and welcome to another weekly Wednesday Kickstarter roundup from Rule of Carnage, bringing together all the best that Kickstarter has for the tabletop miniatures gamer. I'm doing a really stripped down roundup this week, just because I am riddled with flu. So I've stripped the projects down, I've stripped them down, and these are the 5 for this week, just 5, that I think are, absolute don't misses, and you really need to stop by and give them a look over. We've got an accessories campaign, a models campaign, and 3 STLs. And we'll launch straight in with the accessories campaign, and it is Stonefold Kingdoms, Magnetic Dungeons, and Foldable RPG Terrain by Dungeon in a Box. If you watch the channel regularly, you know that I'm a big fan of foldable, fold-downable, compactable terrain. I think that the main thing that limits people picking up new systems ends up being storage more than anything else, and one of the biggest things that takes up storage is terrain. Also, I think that sometimes dungeon delving, sort of dungeon crawling games as minis games can struggle a little bit because they require quite specific terrain. You want lots of corridors and switchbacks and overhangs and all kinds of tight little places where often we'll have hills and trees and buildings, but it's hard to get a sort of continuous set of terrain across the tabletop. This campaign, Stonefold, it's marketed, as you probably heard in the title just then, as RPG terrain. What it is foldable down, pop-up, dungeon and dungeon style terrain. So they've got like outdoor terrain, forests, mountains, castles that are still very tiered and stepped with caves and overhangs and all that sort of stuff. So I think if you're looking for a fairly small, 36-inch sort of size table for one of those tighter skirmish games that's going to really benefit from lots of sort of tiered line of sight and sort of line of sight blocking columns and walls and caves and switchbacks and corridors, and you're looking for something that's going to store down super tidy, slot straight onto a bookcase, I think this is a great campaign to stop by. I think these would work brilliantly for something like Frostgrave, but anything of that sort of exploring, adventuring, warband style of skirmish game, these would be great for. I think definitely stop by and check them out. Okay, moving on to our models campaign, we've got Leprechaun Fantasy Football Team by A Gamer Minis by Greg McBride. So this is a fun one. We often get fantasy football, Blood Bowl style sort of teams on Kickstarter. It's one of those ones that turns up fairly regularly, and so it's nice when you get one that's a little bit outside of the normal set. This team is set to represent halflings or proxy for halflings, but they've been styled as leprechauns, and the guys behind this project have really sort of gone into that. Every model has been sort of represented from their halfling equivalent within the general Blood Bowl rule set, with a bit of thought into how to make them across into these leprechaun style halflings, and they're really good. They're really nice. They've got sort of shillelaghs for the heavies, and big top hats and all the sorts of things you might imagine for a standardized version of leprechauns. You've got all the bits and pieces that you need for a Blood Bowl team: coaches, cheerleader, chefs, all those bits and pieces. And this is available as both resin models, pledge level, and also as an STL file level. So you've got the options there. If you want them as STLs, then you can pick them up and obviously print out really as many as you like of them. So really fun, nice sort of Blood Bowl fantasy football team, well worth checking out if you're a fan of Blood Bowl. Okay, moving on to our STL file rewards this week. First up, we've got Viking Warfare Small Miniatures by Tom. This is a really nice campaign of a set of, well, Viking Raiders, but Viking Raiders in lots of flavours of Viking Raiders. You've got heavies with spears, heavies with shields, lights with spears, lights with shields, dual wields, bows, berserkers, war horns, really sort of all the configurations that you could sort of imagine units of Vikings, Saxons and Franks kind of coming in. Also a really lovely longboat in the campaign, which make brilliant for scenarios, settings where you want to have your Vikings, say, establishing a beachhead, arriving under resistance. It's a real sort of scenario builder. In the campaign, they're listed at both 15mm and 28mm. I love seeing smaller gaming scales supported. I think, more smaller gaming scales is great. It lets you get in more games on less space and makes armies more portable and just makes life much more convenient. I do think these guys, they're also listed as working at 28mm, and I think they will. I think maybe they'll look a little bit stronger in the 15mm, but I think they'll look absolutely great either way. It's not like scaling down 75 to 28mm. 15 to 28mm I think is an entirely acceptable jump, and I think these guys will look absolutely fantastic whatever scale you print them out at. Okay, next up for our STL file campaigns, we've got Western Rush by Chiyoko Yoshida. This is a set of Western, which American frontiers style terrain for FDM printers. It's a really good, solid set of terrain. This is a table filler for definite. I think you could absolutely set out an entire Western town, a single street town maybe, but a very well populated one with lots of buildings with lots of internal detail. I think if you're playing a skirmish game that's going to benefit from internal detail, balconies, options to move around and sort of climb up in a Western setting, I think these can be an absolutely fantastic set of terrain. I think these work great for Malifaux, Dracula's America, Dead Man's Hand, all sorts of different Western styled or Western adjacent Weird West skirmish games, and there's plenty out there, and this terrain is very detailed, very cool, and you get a whole ton of it on the campaign. So well worth checking out if you're interested in Western or Frontiers style based games, and you want to fill out a proper good sized table with a whole town, frankly. Okay, next up for our STL file campaigns, we've got Greendale and Grimdale, the next chapter, 3D printable project by 3D Layered Scenery. This one I think is a super cool set of terrain. This is the sort of thing that I really get sort of excited about for rules writing, scenario creation. It's a set of medieval buildings. You've got an armory, a farmhouse, castle gates, those sorts of bits and pieces, but they come in the Greendale version, which is all nice and as it should be and well built up, and the Grimdale version, which is ruined, destroyed, tumbled down. So I think that instantly for me just shouts the option to do scenarios of various kinds. The obvious one is some sort of siege campaign where Greendale is being assailed, and each game you play a building or a part of building might get destroyed, and then you can represent it on the next part of the campaign, which is super cool, super fun, well worth doing. I sort of think, this would be interesting to have this as a time-lapse campaign where you've got this bustling town in one set of scenarios, and then far in the future it's this tumble down ruin and you come back to it. I think there's lots of sort of interesting scenarios and campaigns and system and sets of rules. We could really play around with these options. It's just lovely to have the same building in different sort of states that you can come back to, write a different set of rules for, figure out and explain what has happened to it and why, and then recreate that on the tabletop. So I think a super cool set of STLs, really lovely, just lovely set of terrain, full stop, even without the two-state situation. It's really great terrain, very playable, very usable. But with that little twist, that little option, I think it really elevates it. Well worth checking that one out. Okay, and last up for our projects this week, we've got Destroyed Fighting Vehicles of World War II from Wargame 3D by Maharata Bohush. Now this is a repeat creator that we have featured on the channel before, and they regularly put out big sets of vehicles, historical vehicles with tons of attention to detail. They really sort of research and put together beautiful files that are carefully researched and just look absolutely fantastic. And we featured them for that point in the past. This one I think is particularly interesting. Relating back to the previous campaign, this is for a set of destroyed vehicles. So you've got options here to use these guys as terrain, as sort of burnt out vehicles and things on a road, you know, coming across a convoy or something that's been assaulted and destroyed and suffering a secondary ambush. All sorts of, you know, cool scenarios for that. But obviously these guys would be brilliant for representing when a vehicle gets destroyed during a game. You know, we often sort of maybe turn a vehicle on its side if it's appropriate, or stick on bits of cotton wool. I think it's super cool to sort of take out the nice looking vehicle and drop in a smashed up one with the tracks off of the same sort of model and look and style. I think it's a really cool option, well worth thinking of if you're into World War II historic vehicle based battles. I think this is a campaign you absolutely have to get into, back, have these pieces available for just doing cool stuff and doing fun things. These are a great campaign for that. Okay, that's going to be it for this week. As I say, a really stripped down video this week because I think I need to go and lie down in a dark room now. As usual, I'll be back this Saturday with a game design chat with myself and Mike Hutchinson. Next week, providing I'm still alive, I will be back for another roundup. As we're rolling up to Christmas, I think the campaigns will get fewer, but sometimes you get some campaigns that, you know, don't care what time of year they launch and can be really big and very interesting. So we'll look out, fingers crossed there should be something cool in the next few weeks. For now, if you do back any of these campaigns, please swing down into the comments section. Let me know what you backed and why, what you're hobbying, what you're doing, what you're interested in. Hit the like and subscribe while you're down there. And then swing by the Discord and tell me what you backed over there. I love seeing what people are doing in their hobby, what people are enjoying, what people are interested in. For now, from me, from this episode of Rule of Carnage though, it's going to be a thank you and goodbye. So, bye-bye. Bye.